You have no clue. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode with the Beacon of Leadership podcast. We're very excited about this episode today because we get to interview one of our beacons. We're going to get to know her. This is an in-depth interview about who she is, what she does, what she brings to the table, and how she can help serve you out there as a beacon of leadership. So our interview today is with Halima Mahiuddin. Think I've finally gotten that right. I hope so. You'll let me know. But she is a beacon of global innovation, and she wants to be known for her service in executive development and business optimization. So I'm really excited to find out how she wants to help inspire and change business around the world. So Halima, welcome to our Beacon of Leadership podcast today.
Thank you so much, RJ. It's an absolute pleasure to be a part of this platform and to be able to share my views and my passions through you guys. I have always been very passionate about building capacity, and I think that is, even before I could understand what it exactly meant, optimizing our potential and helping people become their best versions. That is something that we were not only taught as children, but also at school. I went to a Catholic school back home in Pakistan. That's where I was raised all the way till 23 when I migrated to the United States. So I went to this Catholic school and I was educated by sisters of charity. It was called Sacred Heart of Jesus and Mary. And those sisters are all over the globe. So they instilled quite strong Christian values in us, which are pretty much similar to Islamic values as well, that you help every person, regardless of who they are, and you help them be their best versions. You are merciful, you are kind, you're helpful. And the same values were reinforced when I came back home, that make sure that you're not just living your life for yourself, but you live for others. I mean, that was the basic concept or the theme with which I was raised. I watched my parents do that. I watched my teachers do that. And they taught us to be actively involved in community, helping our friends, starting from our family and friends around us in the class. If you were done with your work, you help the next person and help them reach their finish line or achieve the goals that they were focused on. So long story short, after I entered the professional arena, I started with a bunch of Ivy League professionals. And the reason I say that is because these were professors that were cream of the crop gold medalists from all around the world who had gone to the top-notch schools to get the best credentials, and they had come back to Pakistan to help add to the GDP of the country. And they were designing programs for all industries all across the board and the government, trying to optimize efficiency, productivity. So when my foundations were set or laid out by a bunch of people who were so invested and passionate in building capacity, that is what kind of influenced or inspired me to work along those lines, not only just build individual person's capacity, but also business capacity, because everything ties down to our GDP, our overall quality of life. You start with an individual, but you realize that we are all interconnected. We are in a human fabric. And then when one vibrates at a higher frequency, then we lift everybody else around us as well. And this is one of the best ways of enhancing the quality of life of people. So that's my motivation. I wasn't very spiritual in the first half of my life, but recently I have become way more spiritual than I used to be. And that gives me inspiration to be of service, to make my life valuable, not just for me, myself, and I, and maybe a few friends and family, but everybody across the board. And recently, keeping all of this passion in mind, I launched a platform called Leadership Think Tanks. And the main purpose of which is to not only network with like-minded individuals and organizations, but also to make sure that the resources we have available on this planet are being utilized and not wasted. I know it sounds like a bird's eye view the way I'm talking about it, but that's how impactful it is. Every single individual making a difference in their own capacity, it goes a long way.
Absolutely. That's the gist of everything we're trying to put together here in Beacon of Leadership, inspiring people to not just take ownership of their own development, their own growth, but to find ways to serve and find ways to be of value, and so that their contribution matters. And so there's why you fit so well into our platform. And you know, the work you're doing is going to be so valuable. I'm looking forward to not only learning more about you, but seeing how you're going to serve. So I see you wear a hijab, but I think I hope that's what it's called. But so people see that and they think Muslim culture. But you also just said you were raised in the Christian church. Tell me, is that a conflict? Tell me a little bit more. You said you're more spiritual now than you were as a youth, but is that a conflict? How did they mesh together?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. There's so many things in common, and actually, I think 99% of the things in common. There's only one difference that is that we believe that, you know, in spirit we are all children of God.
Mhm.
So the only difference, even though this is off topic, the only difference is that just an FYI for the people watching, I'm in a restaurant. So if you hear any additional sound effects, it's from being there. Anyhow, coming back to the point, the only difference is that we believe that that Jesus was a miraculous birth. He is the Messiah. He will come back and take us to salvation, guide us to the righteous path, and get rid of all the misconceptions. But we don't believe him to be the begotten son, because, I mean, this is the only difference. But as far as in spirit, we are all the children of God. But as far as the belief system, it's the same. I feel like we, you know how you fight over I love you more, I love you more. I think the way we feel for Jesus is I can't even explain it in words. That's a major part of our faith. We have an entire chapter on the mother of Jesus by name. It's called Surah Maryam. It's chapter on her and how the miraculous birth happened and how Jesus spoke in his cradle. And that is why all the people who in those times, it was unheard of that an unmarried little girl would come home with a child, because they would not think good things of her, you know, tarnish her character. So Jesus spoke from the cradle. That is in our scriptures. And that is when he said that I'm a prophet of God. So yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful revelation that's shared in the Quran. And yeah, unfortunately, this doesn't help the media. It doesn't help them make money. So they only share things that divide and rule and, you know, create more hatred, which is unfortunate. But no, there was absolutely no conflict. I think we blended so well. You know, I started covering my head in 2021. And I kid you not that all my mom didn't cover her head, but all the nuns did. All the nuns that were from kindergarten all the way to 12th grade, they had their heads covered. Some of them had white head coverings and some had black. So I think this influence also comes from them, from Mother Mary, and how I believe, and believers, all believers do, that this is how they dressed up, a dress code that was suggested by God. So yeah, no conflict.
Awesome. No, thank you for that. And thank you for your take on it, because look, there's, like you said, that's one of the big conflicts around the world. It's the difference between Christianity and Muslim culture, and the fact that there's almost a spiritual war going on between the two cultures. And there shouldn't be, because again, like you say,
Yeah.
the teachings, the values, they're very much the same. So there's a way we can, you know, start to unite us in a global front.
Absolutely, RJ. Cannot agree more. Absolutely, yes. Because see, if you look at how Jesus conducted his life, peace and blessings be upon him, how Muhammad, peace and blessings upon him, conducted his lives, they were so merciful, they were so kind, they were so forgiving, they were so accepting. I read in our religious history that Jesus only had one bowl or one comb, and somebody came to him and he gave it. He gave that one thing, the only thing he had, he just gave it without a single thought. So that's the kind of mercy, that's the kind of kindness, forgiveness, and empathy that we have to follow. But it's unfortunate that instead of following them, we are fighting. It doesn't make sense. I think it's unfortunate when the political agendas and vested interests get mixed up, and some entities know that they can exploit religion, they can exploit people's feelings and emotions, and that's the best way to galvanize them. So they use it for their political agendas and selfish reasons, which is unfortunate. But if you look at the preachings, they're all the same. They're all the same for the Abrahamic religions.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Again, thank you for your take on it. I'm sure that when people hear this, it's going to go a long way to changing people's mindset to again starting to unite the world as a global front. And you said one of your biggest mission is to take on the concept of capacity, and I love that. You may have heard me say I'm a follower of John Maxwell, so I'm reading his book No Limits right now, and that really is about, in fact, the subtitle is Blow the Cap Off Your Capacity. In other words, taking what you believe to be a limit and just expanding that. So you defined it as optimizing your potential, and I love that, because I mean, one of the principles that John Maxwell has is he gives everybody a 10. In other words, he doesn't know this person. The minute he sees them, he sees their potential as a 10. And if we start to see people as a 10 from the moment we meet them, we can see them as a higher value than what we put on people for the most part.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, it's amazing that we find these motivational speakers and leaders, and they remind us and they help us stay on track. Whoever resonates with whoever, they pick them and then follow them and their systems. But even if those who are followers of quantum physics, if they don't believe in faith, in religion or God, I mean, people reach Mother Nature or creativity or karma or energy or the source of this universe in different ways. And I don't judge nobody. My way of reaching that source is believing in the one and only God. Somebody else might not look at it that way. However, they reach that source of creation, however they believe it, whatever they think it is, we have been given unbelievable potential. I recently learned that the heart has cells which have memory, and that have got nothing to do with the brain. Can you believe that? So when we have a traumatic experience or a good experience, they're not only stored in our brain, but they're also stored in our heart memory. Can you believe that? So when you get therapy for your brain, but you don't heal your heart, you're not fully healed. So knowing and realizing the potential of a human being, I think that is, you are a universe in your own self. Every single person born is a leader. They lead their lives, they lead their family, they lead their extended family or their organization, or whatever it is. Every life has the capacity to make tremendous impact on as many things as they want to. We just have to recognize to unleash that. Now, capacity building is the process of enhancing an organization or an individual's ability to perform tasks, achieve objectives, solve problems effectively. It is an essential investment for organizations and individuals to maximize their productivity, their efficiency, their cost effectiveness, and so on and so forth. So this is something that you cannot ignore at any level. Even if you're a stay-at-home mom, you need to build your capacity. Usually people would think that building capacity means physical capacity, having more room or being able to produce more. That's not just it. It has many facets to it. You have to have your strategic muscle that has to be enhanced on an ongoing basis. This is not something that you reach and you're done. It's an ongoing continuous quality improvement process, which you can say falls under total quality management if you're looking at professions or areas of specialization. But there are so many tools, there are so many multifaceted uh, avenues that we can explore and enhance ourselves in, because it's a 360 circle that you have to complete. When you're building capacity of an organization, you have to make sure that not only are you being productive, efficient, cost effective, but you're also making sure that the culture that you're providing to the humans who work for you is optimized, that the impact that you're leaving or adding to the social fabric around you is also optimized. So there are so many things that need to be taken into consideration. It doesn't have to be me. It doesn't have to be us. Wherever you can go, if somebody is listening, please do not give up on yourself. Please do not sell yourself short. Please do not stagnate. Keep on evolving. And the only way to build your capacity is to innovate on an ongoing basis. You can only do that when you keep your options open and when you make sure that you are not calcifying your mindset, that you are re-engineering your mindset, that you have the ability to be fluid, that you have the ability to be agile on an ongoing basis. It's utterly important. You cannot waste yourself. You cannot waste the resources on this earth. I think
I want
this is,
to
go ahead.
jump in here because you're saying so many things and I've taken note of them. And I have to like bring this in for our audience because you and I know each other on one level. And the things that I really wanted to bring to the table today, because I've thought about it. Honestly, I know that you lift others and you have that other sense of focus. But at the same time, you also have the systems thinking. You have this idea that, as beacons, we should be aware of developing people's potential. And, part of that has to do, like what you said, being agile, re-engineering your mindset, all of these things. And you talked about how it's ongoing. You never stop. And I personally found myself in a situation, and I'm going to go ahead and share it here at the higher level, but I found myself in a situation where I needed to have my authority and my command in the room established in dialogue. And so you work with executives on developing those skills. And so while I knew where I needed to come in, I wasn't sure of the how. I needed to come in with a sense of authority. I needed to come in with a sense of confidence, and I needed to be able to demonstrate my competency in an area. And I logically knew a little bit about where I needed to start, but from your lens outside of me, you gave me some skills that I could employ in that situation. And I will kid you not, anyone that's listening, Halima is excellent in being able to draw out what a person can do to step into their power. And it's all about reframing, because all I had to do was reframe the conversation, use a few key words, and I was able to go from maybe feeling like my word and my power and my authority wasn't there to it was on fire. and it was all done in a respectful, meaningful way. And so what we ended up doing in the situation I was in was establishing that sense of collaborative power. So respect for executives, but then also respect for what I had at the same time, and the two could coexist. And so I know that when we're developing people and we're developing, being in that space, that we always worry about the imbalance in power, but really it can be established and maintained, and it was so effective. And I don't know, Halima, if you wanted to go into a little bit about that, but I'm thinking, in capacity building, it's all about the individuals that make up the system. And when that can be maximized or optimized, the results are just wonderful and amazing. Everyone wins.
I'm extremely humbled, Linda. Thank you so much. They had, I think a huge party showed up. That wasn't expected. So my apologies. Yeah. So I'm truly humbled, and I would be honest in saying that you have done the same for me in situations when one is in a difficult, challenging situation. It's hard to use your own strengths. Sometimes you need that coach. Sometimes you need that beacon to guide you to the light. So I did that for you just the way you did it for me. I think it's very important to recognize that the source of challenge that you're facing, what is it stemming out of? What hold on, give me a second. Let me see if I can move to my car and still have a connection, because this is quite loud.
Linda, you and I will kind of maybe reiterate what she's been
Yes,
saying, because I mean,
exactly.
she's added some tremendous value here. First of all, like I said, capacity. I love that she talked about it being a multifaceted program. You know what I mean? Or like there's just so many different areas. Like I said, I follow John Maxwell and I'm reading the book No Limits, and he talks about creative capacity. He talks about communication capacity. And there are just so many more. Again, I haven't done the research. I haven't gone through all of the areas of expertise. But you also talked about just now, the ability to balance, like balance, a capacity for balance. That, let's put it that way. What a
Mhm.
tremendous asset that is, because look, you have initiatives and authority that you're trying to manage, but you also have to be respectful of those who have other creative ideas, shall we say, or their own personalities that they want to manage. So there's just so much that we could work on in trying to balance and keep this capacity growing in all these areas that are available. Any thoughts before we bring Halima back on?
You're absolutely right. There are so many different areas, and I just was speaking to one that I found particularly useful and powerful, and the one I think that people on teams come up with all of the time. It's like, how do I communicate to upper management? How do I communicate across the team? How do I communicate to people that don't report to me? And so that was a situation that I was in, is how do I communicate effectively to management so they understand that I've got control of the situation. I'm answering their needs of what they need to know so they can respond in kind to the things that they need to communicate. And it's a dance. It's really a dance to figure out how far you can take the conversation, because you want to be transparent, you want to be open, you want to be honest, and having that respect has to happen on both sides of the equation, and
Absolutely.
it's not just one-sided. And so realizing that each person has a place in the conversation, and can do it artfully, that's when leadership's working to its full optimal capacity, really. And that's what I was speaking to.
Yeah, so you heard that, Halima, and so there's.
Oh, you're muted.
I ended up pressing a button here while I was trying to say. So there is that situation. There's another one I'd like to discuss with you too, because innovation is about getting people to work together. So Linda, how well did she do, or is there some other suggestions that she could do to manage these expectations of authority versus being respectful?
Yeah, first of all, my apologies for this turbulence. Like everybody knows, I was at a friend's restaurant. They weren't expecting a huge party, but they did. And now I'm in my car with you guys, thanks to technology. And I still have Wi-Fi, thankfully, working. So coming back to what we were just talking about, the situation that, Linda and I had a chance to work on as a team, and get her empowered and bring her back into her power, was quite a high profile situation. It was at a very state level, vast level that she was handling. It wasn't something that was just impacting one person. It was a whole organization or a network that was being challenged. and she had to step up to handle and tackle things that were somebody else's responsibility. And she did it beautifully. But what happens is, one thing that we all have to keep in mind is that when we are under stress, now this is a scientific reaction that happens in our bodies, we get tunnel vision. We get so much cortisol in our system that we don't see all that we need to see to come with a strategic solution, something that's balanced and all encompassing. All encompassing is extremely important. We have to be mindful. We have to be aware that all the stakeholders, first of all, you have to identify the root cause. Identify the root cause, then identify the stakeholders. And then you might find yourself in situations where somebody is coming across as a bully, as manipulative person, or being irrational, unprofessional, condescending. People can react in weird ways under stress. And just because somebody is a supervisor, somebody has a huge title, that does not mean that they're seasoned in how to handle stress. So they can mess you up really badly when they're communicating. And not only do you have to maintain your sanity, not only at that point you have to make sure that you are not saying something that you'd regret later, you have to come up with a solution. You not only have to think for yourself, but at that point you have to step into your power and think for that person who was supposed to lead and is incapable of that at that moment, but also lead the team out of that from the middle or the bottom or wherever you are at. So those are all the roles that you have to assume. And you can only do that if you know your capacity, if you know your power. So that is exactly what Linda did. I think what happens momentarily is when you're under pressure from all directions and you're trying to juggle and solve everything for everybody while trying to maintain your balance, it becomes a little hard. And that is why it is so critically significant for each one of us to have a beacon in our life. We all need a beacon, no matter what our expertise is, how big of a champion we are. We all need even a beacon needs a beacon, and we all know that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's what she did. And I think the first thing is to recognize the root cause. Then you determine the stakeholders, and then whoever's in your direct contact and area of impact, you have to determine, first of all, I cannot generalize. We have to make an assessment that is customized to that situation, to that problem. That is exactly what Linda did. And the way she handled it was tremendous. It was commendable. She did a beautiful job. So, I mean, I didn't have an issue. And whenever I've run into issues or challenges, she has been the same to me as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, and so that's what innovation is, right? Is adapting to the circumstances that we're having to deal with at any given moment. So like I said, so we expect our leaders to be able to lead, to carry the vision and being able to achieve objectives. But so I'll tell you about the situation we're going on in my organization, and maybe you can touch upon that, and maybe we can come up with some creative resolves for my organization, because so we work in a union house. So you know that mentality that, I've got union protection. I have to do my job. As long as I do my job, I don't have to do anything else. Yeah. So one of the objectives we're trying to achieve right now is to make our bus availability, which is, the service, we need to make service. Our service is currently around 60 some odd %, but our organization has been given a mandate to reach 85% bus availability. But being a union house, nobody wants to work any harder than they have to. So yet it's the leader's job to carry this forward. They have to make this happen. How do they get around that? How do they consider that, okay, this is my organizational objective. How do I inspire my team to work together to achieve this objective?
This is something that I'm so very passionate about, and it drives me crazy when people tell me, oh, that's not part of my pay grade. That's beyond my pay grade. That's not part of my job. I don't do that. I mean, it just drives me nuts. How can you limit yourself? How can you disrespect your capacity by saying that your title defines you, by saying that your job, whatever the price that somebody else has set on you for your work that you do, how can you let that define you, your capacity? That's an insult to yourself. That's an absolute insult to yourself. You're wasting yourself. You're being ungrateful, in my opinion. God has given you unlimited potential. And yes, we all work to put bread on the table. We all work for money. It is a major part of our productivity. You know, whatever we give, we do return something that makes it worth our whiles, right? But at the same time, do not limit yourself. Do not disrespect yourself by saying, oh, that's not my job, or that's not my pay scale. It's out of my pay grade. Why would you? I mean, it's like you're making you're lowering your status as a human. I believe, based on my scriptures, that God created humans as the superior beings, superior of all creation. This is in our scriptures. Out of all the creations that God made, he made us superior. Like everything that we do, animals do. But what do we have that they don't? We have an intellect. We make choices. We think of others more than buying stuff for myself, working for my family, feeding them, going to sleep, waking up in the morning, buying more stuff, feeding my family, earning money, and repeating that cycle. That's something animals do too. So we have to work at a higher level of consciousness. And I think it all depends on the leader. The kind of culture a leader creates determines the direction and trajectory of the people he leads. If the leader is not giving you the respect or the fulfillment that you need to bring out your best or your optimal capacity, then you're not going to be able to meet all those goals. You have to let people know that what they're doing is not just worth the money that they're getting. They're making an impact. They're part of the social fabric. You are in the transportation business. You move things from one place to another. That's an infrastructure that impacts the whole economy, that impacts the whole society, that feeds people, that raises the quality of life of people, that elevates, uplifts humanity. I mean, so they have to help people make connections. You have to connect to your higher purpose. No matter what you do, even if you are a janitor somewhere, no matter what you do, make sure that you understand that every move you make adds value. Every positive contribution you make adds value, not only to your pocket, but also to the people around you. So you have to help people connect with their higher purpose. If there's no purpose, then you cannot. My sustenance comes from God. My fulfillment comes from him. That is why nobody in my organization, no matter how toxic somebody tries to be in my dealings, social, personal, professional, it's going to impact me because I'm human. But at the end of the day, it's not going to debilitate me because I know my value. I know that I'm a creation of God and I matter, and I was given this unlimited potential. That is my responsibility to respect, value, honor, and blossom. So I think having an alignment exercise, making sure that the teams are powered, pumped, and connected to a higher purpose, and not just the money value or the, okay, 6 hours, this many dollars, and I'm done, man. This is it. Give them a purpose. Give them a reason to come to work. Help them see that they make a difference. If you cannot connect people to their purpose or help them see how meaningful their lives are, then you cannot expect them to act like super beings who will be going out of their way to make the extra effort or the extra mile.
And I could see your passion for this topic, the way you just took off on what it was almost a rant. You know what I mean? But you gave tremendous value in that rant. So I love it. First of all, I believe much the way you what you described it. I'm a part of as a training coordinator, I'm part of the people engagement team. And one of the things I'm working on right now is how do we get these people inspired? So you've given me some things to talk about. I really want to work with you to try and figure out how we can get these people more engaged. Again, they're a union house, not only a union house, but government organization. So they believe they don't have to do any more than is necessary. They're getting paid, they're doing their job. What else could they, be asked of? But honestly, they're being asked for more, and they just simply don't want to perform above a certain standard. So
they will give you what you treat them as. They will give you what you expect of them. If you don't give them the respect, if you don't value them, they will not give you more than they have to. I mean,
Mhm.
that, and I wouldn't blame anybody. If a leader cannot inspire that kind of a passion in people that they go out of their way. I'll give you a quick example. Right now in my country, back home in Pakistan, I mean, now USA is also my country because I'm a naturalized citizen. But back home in Pakistan, there's a lot of social unrest. There's political nonsense and, a lot going on. And there's this one leader who used to be a sports player. People love him so bad that the entire army and the police force could not arrest him. They didn't let him. They were not being paid anything. These are poor people on the street who are willing to give their lives away just to protect a leader they believe in. They have no food. They have no job promise, nothing. This guy is not giving them anything but hope. So that's how you galvanize. If you cannot connect to the higher purpose, and if you cannot help people see that their lives matter, they value, if you cannot help them respect their own value, then you cannot channel them into any direction. I remember once, I was in a situation where I needed help, and I asked somebody, and a union person, and they said that, oh, that is not in my pay scale. That is not part of my, and she brought me a book, a union book that did not say this and this. And she asked me, so how much will I get paid for this? So, I was at that point, I just turned around and said, you know what? My job description involves everything. I can do anything I want. And I turned around and I did it myself. And she looked at me in such a, she couldn't believe what I just told her. And I think she didn't know how to take her words back, because I could see that on her facial expression that she did not like what she had said earlier. Because of how I responded, because I was like, I felt, oh my goodness, I have the power to do anything I want. I can fix anything. I can add value in any capacity. It doesn't matter what my title is. It doesn't matter what I'm paid. If I can fix it, I will. If I can help, I will. If it is my God-given capacity to make a difference and somebody else is getting paid or rewarded, I don't mind. Quite honestly, I don't mind.
And so can any union worker, you know what I mean? They can contribute whatever they feel value in contributing. They just have to, like you, they have to change their mindset and their belief that this is the contribution I'm making. And look, even when I was a union worker myself, as a bus driver, look, I started a peer support organization, or a peer support group within my organization. When any of my coworkers needed a problem resolved, I usually went to the management or went to the bosses and found an option for them. So these are the things I did that were above my pay grade. But again, I wanted to help other people. I wanted to serve other people. So how can I serve? What can I do? I just took that ownership upon myself. And so you're not in my industry. And this is why, like you said earlier, we all need beacons. Even beacons need a beacon, because you were able to see something that maybe my managers who are so close to it, they don't get to see this. They don't get to understand the contribution that mechanic, tightening the wrench on the bus and keeping this vehicle moving, the value that it has, not only to the organization, not only to my city, but to society, and the contribution that little wrench puller makes to enhance everybody's lives.
That is true, RJ. You are absolutely right. And I think it's our souls, it's our passions. As humans, we need to make sure that we are aligned, right? We need to make sure before we do anything at all that our minds, bodies, and souls are in sync with each other, that we are in harmony. Because if you're only feeding your soul and not your mind and body, then there's something's got to give. Likewise, if you're only focused on your body and your mind and you're not feeding your soul and spirit, then something's got to give. You're going to lose that balance and something's going to fall off track. There's going to be some kind of an imbalance that will impact you negatively if you do not maintain your equilibrium, which means that all facets of your being, all areas of your existence are equally balanced and nourished and taken care of and are evolved with the passage of time. You have to take all parts of you together, the ones you see and feel and the ones you don't. So regardless of who you are, whether you're working, not working, if you're a human being, you have to make sure that you're in balance. If you're a human being, you have to make sure that you overall in service yourself, whichever way it works for you. If you follow faith, use prayer. If you are worshiping, if you follow karma, then use whatever, mindset, people who follow karma, or if you follow quantum physics, if you believe in nature, however you understand the dynamics of the universe, make sure that you as an entity or living organism in the ecosystem are fairly nourished, you are taken care of, and you are taking care of yourself. When I talk about living for others, I don't mean that don't put your oxygen mask first. You have to put your oxygen mask first. That comes number one. You can't help nobody if you yourself are gasping for air, for oxygen. So there's so many aspects to it. And like you said, that sometimes leaders under pressure need beacons. Maybe you can be the beacon to the leader that you have, or a higher management. And then if you have people reporting to you, you can be their beacon and lead them to wherever it is that you're trying the organization to get to. But at the same time, you have to be honest. Don't fake it. Many people say fake it till you make it. I would say, please don't fake it.
I hate that term. I really do. It makes me want to pull out my hair.
It drives me crazy. Do not fake. Be authentic.
Yes.
Be authentic. Be genuine. Be honest and empathetic in your approach. Be who you are. Don't try to lead people into thinking that you are something and that you're not. Be who you are and proudly own it. So there are so many aspects to individuals, organizations, societies, governments, even countries. We have to recognize that this planet is the only home we have, and we have to learn to live in a way that not only optimizes the use of the resources we have, including human resources, which means us, and the natural resources, and all kinds of resources that we've been given to make this place a home, and a home that is livable by all, and it's fair and just for everybody who's living on this planet. And it starts from one person. You build your capacity and you're going to be a beacon for the people around you. And then they each one teach one. Let the snowball effect carry on.
I love that expression. Each one teach one.
I was writing that down too.
Thank you. Absolutely. And so, Linda, you came off mute. So you must have a question or two for Halima before we end this. We have about another 15 minutes. So let's keep the ingenuity and the initiative going.
Yes, I'm just taking in everything that she's saying. The part about each beacon needs a beacon and how it begins with us. And she's so right when it comes to, if you can't connect a person to their higher purpose, you're not going to be able to effectively lead in an organization. And when you're not effectively leading an organization, there's no way you can maximize potential to exceed capacity and meet those organizational goals. And so I'm thinking about your challenge, RJ. She's already given you like that pathway, like, okay, you're going to do an alignment exercise. So have you gotten everything you need in your tool belt to go back into your organization and lead that alignment exercise? Because if not, Halima is going to be your go-to gal to be able to do this, because we just talked about each one should teach one. And so here's an opportunity right here in our Beacon of Leadership community, which is, again, we have our founding beacons. Halima is one of three. And this is what we plan to do more of. And, I'm sitting here thinking about this whole global capacity building and everything that she does. She's going to help us in our own backyard here. We're going to be doing this work here. And, you're going to be able to take that 60% to 85%. I challenge you to go into your organization and do that. And, to be able to do that, you're going to be teaching one person how to do an alignment exercise, how to reach those people and get inside their mind so that they are feeling valued for what they're doing. Because, I see that all the time. The moment somebody doesn't feel valued, their contributions that they're putting in, then they may not always speak up and tell you. And that is the killer of an organization's power, is the lack of somebody speaking to something. And so here you are, you can go speak now. So I'm excited and that she's empowered you to do this.
For sure. And I wrote that down. That's one thing I would love to hear more of from Halima. So maybe, you know what, I don't want to use you, so to speak, but at the same time, I don't know, like I know what an alignment exercise is. I know, how it might work, but I don't know what that might look like. I don't know how to unpack that in order to create that and take it back.
That's a beautiful concern. I mean, I love that because it is custom. It has to be custom tailored to whatever you're going to bring it into, the environment, the stakeholders, the people, the nature of their work, the kind of shifts they work in, the nature of a lot of things, a lot of the area they live in, what kind of resources so I have to understand that so it has to be specific assessment of that area to determine that to align the exercise with the people that we are trying to align. One of the main things, the first thing would be to make a connection, help people connect. I used to think I think the nurse dropped me when I was born. I slipped out of her hand, and maybe that's why I couldn't understand some of the things that I did because I was focused and invested in something, and all of a sudden I would see a bird fly by and I'll be lost, in that bird, lose track of my thought and enjoying the clouds all of a sudden while driving on the freeway taking pictures. So I was like, what is wrong with me? I have some kind of a psychological imbalance. This is not right. Who am I? Where am I from? And since very young, I would say, where are my people? Somebody ET phone home. I wait for my spaceship to come and rescue me. And I still sometimes feel that. So that led to me discovering about the personality tests. So do that just for fun, make it a fun activity, do a personality test. And that's when I discovered, oh, there's more people like me. Robin Williams was like me. I am an ENFP. So you have to help people understand each other better. You have to understand that sometimes a colleague or a friend or a family member acts a certain way, not because they're trying to make your life miserable. It's because that's how they're naturally designed. So how do you bring out the best in them, and how do you help them overcome their shortcomings? So I think that is something you could start with, and we can, when we go off camera, let me know how I can be of help. And I don't mind you using me, feel free. And whatever I can do, I'd be more than happy to contribute. Then again, it has to be customized to the group of people that you're trying to uplift or empower or encourage to meet a certain number of goals. And then you have to give them a plan of action. You can't just uplift them and get them all excited and not have a plan of action, because you have to have structure also. You have to have the ability for them to be able to think freely and contribute and make suggestions, recommendations, but at the same time, you have to keep the structure in place because you don't want to create chaos. And so, yeah, it's a multi-dimensional area or a project where you have to make sure that the people who are doing the hard work know soft skills as well. And actually, many organizations have approached me asking me to design a program catering to soft skills for hard professions, which is true. Engineers and people who do more technical work, somehow they lack soft skills. They've never had the need to have soft skills to communicate or build some kind of rapport with their co-workers. It's just like you do your job and you're done and out the door. So
And so
That's
those soft skills, sorry, Linda. So those soft skills, I mean, you and I know them. We use them in our day-to-day work here. But for people in the technical industries, what are those? Just some of them,
I think the communication is
of
the key
course.
soft skill, and how you the choice of words, and being sensitive, and how to and EQ. EQ is the superpower. And I recently did an article that that'll be published soon, on how EQ is more important than IQ, because
And so
people
for
think
people
about
out there, EQ is emotional quotient or
emotional,
level of understanding emotion.
your ability or your sensitivity to the feelings of the people around you, and how you predict, like you can't, if somebody, you sense people going through some kind of an emotional challenge, or you sense their energy is a little damp, and you jump in and you're talking about something exciting. So you have to have the sensibility of how to predict or gauge the environment that you're in, and then function accordingly. And so yeah, it is a mix of all of those things. So EQ, communication, knowing the right kind of words, and also being sensitive to individuals. If you know their personality type, if you've done team exercises that help everybody recognize the strengths and weaknesses of each other, that helps the soft skills assessment become even easier.
Wonderful. Thank you. And then Linda, you were going to ask her or chime in about something there.
Yes, there's so many nuggets that she's just
Oh,
putting
absolutely.
here. She's speaking my language, but I'm going to say on the last thing she spoke on about doing the assessments of the personality types. I've done those on teams. Oh my gosh. All of a sudden, you do get that Me Too thing going on, but then people start to talk about what they personally value and admire. And they can bring up the things that they have as their skills, but then their neighbor is like, oh my gosh, I had no idea, or that is so cool or great. And so all of a sudden people in the room are starting to value and admire these different things, and so that whole communication doorway opens. The sensitivity that the awareness brings is so powerful when a leader can harness that, because you've got this inventory of all the skills, all the things that are being admired, all of these, like you said, these soft skills in a technical world. I think that's what I was going to speak to, because accounting is one of those things like engineering. And so that was one of the challenges, is like, how do you get people to go from individual contributor to thinking for the whole entire good of the team? Because that's what's missing, is that communication and appreciation for these technical skills that everyone can do. It's almost like if you think about people at a sporting event or a concert, everyone's sitting like side by side. That's kind of what happens when technical fields. Everyone's contributing their own thing in a vacuum. And the moment they realize that their piece can blend into somebody else's thing, and all of a sudden you can make this thing bigger, greater, and bigger, then that's when it's just where the ahas start to happen. And that's why the alignment exercise to come up with those things. I've done a number of different ones, and sometimes they're just really super simple. I'm just going to throw this one out here. I had no idea that this was going to be so impactful, but we did this one exercise where we said, what if our team was a person? What would be the ideal attributes? And so that was an alignment exercise. And I thought, well, that's just so simple and easy. I just was blown away. It was somebody saying, let's try this. And I thought, okay, that sounds kind of whatever, but it just exploded. And it was like one of the best exercises that my team went through.
That is excellent. And one thing while doing the alignment exercises is that not only people need to align themselves with their own values and what they think that they are capable of and how they find fulfillment, but then also in sync with the team. One thing, I'll just share an example. Like I was doing creating strategy for a bunch of doctors. So there were two owners actually of a clinical network. And then one of them comes to me and I said, what is it? What are your pain points? What do you want from me? So one of them says to me, I want everybody in my service area to know that I'm the best doctor for this and this specialty. I'm like, okay, so that's what you're aiming for. So you want to be positioned as the best doctor for, let's say, whatever. I mean, I don't want to mention the specifics. And then the other partner says, I don't care about anything. I just want to make the most money. So those are two partners. Now you have two stakeholders. They're part of the same system. And now you have to devise a strategy and a plan of action that makes them both happy. So you are going to find those kind of stakeholders and team members that might not be able to see eye to eye. You might not be able to assign or align them with the same higher purpose. So you have to find a way to determine their trigger or their soft point, whatever gets them going. And then you have to sink it into the purpose that you are trying to help them cater to. So these might not sound very technical, but they sometimes are. You have to be mindful because you have to have everybody's commitment. If you have one or two people who are pushing against the momentum, it's going to be quite wasteful in terms of resources, energies, and outcomes. So those are all things that you have to be mindful of. But like Linda said, some exercises can be very simple. And it's just by, you have to get started by talk. Sometimes you can have small competitions as well. Recognition, some kind of a recognition, the person of the week, this, this team, a team, tigers or whatever you want to call them, based on whatever area you live in, however, whatever inspires people. So make teams, create color code the teams, give them t-shirts, give them targets, have them healthy competition, not a vicious kind of competition, and then recognition. So yeah, those are things that you guys, and then having some kind of sports, bringing sports into it. Have a table tennis or something indoors, depending on what kind of weather you have, that, you can have, bring in a gaming system or something that whoever, based on your outcomes, give me this outcome and you can do whatever you like with the rest of your time or however you want to use it. Give them some kind of a family, retreat, or do some kind of draws. Bring in your community partners to pitch in. If you have a limited budget, be creative, bring in some sponsors. Bring in some people who are, starting new businesses or have established organizations in your area, and have them sponsor some of your competitions or recognitions, or however it is you want to galvanize those resources in your community to serve the purpose that you're trying to serve.
Oh my God, you've just like filled us with such value. You saw me taking furious notes because again, you've already kind of unpacked this alignment exercise. Like you've got like 5 or 6 things that just my eyes opened as you're describing them to me. So, and you know what, again, I'm a junior man, like, I'm a training coordinator, but being part of people engagement, I already said to my director that I was going to put together an engagement report for him. And you just helped fill up that report on things we can do to inspire these people, because that's the goal, right? We need to inspire. Look, we've talked about, getting people to work together, reaching their potential or raising their capacity levels, and letting people understand the value they contribute to the overall design or the overall vision, and these are just a few things that will open up people, not only as individuals, like you said in the beginning, but to change the world. And I love the Steve Jobs quote. It's strange to think that the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are usually the ones who do. And look, I've said it, I want to change the world. But I can only change the world with my contribution. I can only change the world by doing what I can do. But one of the things I can do is inspire people to change, to want to grow, to want to do better. And you know what? You as well, you're changing people's lives by giving them an entire higher level of thinking, but breaking it down into such a simplified aspect that they can understand that they can be a contributor on this level, but it contributes to this, right? This overall grand design. In fact, I've heard a term for God that really helps me understand the concept that God is everything, God is everywhere, and they called it the grand overall designer. You know what I mean? God is the plan for
Correct.
everything. So
Sure.
people need to understand their contribution to that, and the work they can do to create.
Absolutely. Each one of us has unlimited potential. Our brains and our beings have capacities that we have not yet discovered. We have unbelievable potential. If you enjoy quantum physics, do some research and you'll find out that we have power that we have not yet unleashed, we have not yet discovered, and scientists are now in the process of discovering these energies and this ability to make impact through your vibration, the frequency at which you vibrate, and the level at which you vibrate. That is so important, and that is what pulls or pushes away the kind of experiences you have in life. If you keep your frequency rising at a steady rate, I think that's the best way to be. And that can only happen when you keep evolving, when you keep improving, keep improvising, do not settle. I just want to make share something that a transformation or a growth is when you see the problems and you transform based on those. But innovation is basically anchored in the future. You foresee something, you imagine something, and then you change based off of that, some imagination or outcome in the future that you foresee. So that would lead to innovation. You have to learn how to diverge and also to converge. And you cannot, always keep in mind, you cannot fix a problem unless you admit that it exists. So number one, you have to admit that this is the problem and have a consensus that yes, this needs to be fixed because of A, B, C, D, E, F, G. These are the issues being caused. And how will the stakeholders benefit and how they can contribute? So yeah, there's a system for everything. There's a tool for everything. And I think we all shoulder the responsibility, not only to improve ourselves, but also the people around us.
I love how you summarized it again. You said, you have to acknowledge that you're going to change something. And then you look to the stakeholders, and then the stakeholders, you got to know how they're going to benefit. But then you said, and how will they contribute? and so that's a very nice high level survey, or to be able to wrap up everything that you've shared with us today. High level summary, that's what I was trying to say there. And I just I know that RJ, you and I could talk to great lengths about this, and we just, like today, we just barely touched the surface, but
Right.
I think we've done it in such a powerful way that all of the people that are listening in to us today, they're walking away with a valuable tool belt. I'm saying tool belt because we've had half a dozen things that they could go do and put into their mindset. And it's just mind blowing to me every time we talk, what comes out of our discussions.
Absolutely. I think we started with the mindset and changing people's mindset with the talk about capacity and potential, and your contribution to that. And then, so look, you talked just now about the greatest fear, and that brought to mind, by the way, talking about changing the world. I think we're going to have our first female president, by the way. Did you guys hear that Marianne Williamson has tossed in her nomination for the U.S. presidency candidacy?
Wow.
So, and I think she has the backing to have that happen. So you talked about your greatest fear. That's what brought that to mind. So I'd love to just wrap everything we said today up with Marianne Williams's poem called Our Greatest Fear, which is, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around us. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And we let our own light shine. We unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we're liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. And I think that sums up everything. And being a beacon, it's what we're putting together, this whole concept that you are somebody, you have a contribution to make. And by shrinking from that, look, that's why you're frustrated. That's why you're angry. That's why you're not feeling served, because you're not doing enough to let your light shine on the world and just be the person you were meant to be.
Absolutely. Beautifully put, RJ. Beautifully put. Very nice.
Thank you. And then, like Linda said, we could talk for hours. So unfortunately, Curtis Leung, our beacon of positivity, was not here to be with us tonight, but he's always here in spirit and he's with us as a member of the Beacon team. But I am RJ Horner, beacon of life and leadership, joined by
Awesome beacon of team empowerment.
and we got to interview today.
Halima, the beacon of global innovation.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank
No,
you for
go
having
ahead.
me.
Oh,
Thank you.
we were so looking forward to learning about you and the contributions that you add to the world. And I'm just so ecstatic with what came out of today's interview.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I loved and I think we only touched the tip of everything, but we couldn't go into detail. But based on whatever helps people, we will be more than willing to bring more to them.
Absolutely. And I think our next step is to get those master classes scheduled, to start getting out there and teaching people some of these concepts that we bring forth in these interviews. So I'm looking forward to all of that.
Absolutely.
So guys, thank you very much for joining us. And again, until next time, better days ahead.